Alright guys, so here it is. My very first video on drumming. This is going out to a friend of mine, Matt Cleach, who's been asking me for years, and we're talking years, go all the way back to high school, about teaching him how to play drums. So I'm going to give you guys a few tips tonight on how to get a start if you really want to learn how to play drums. In my opinion, this is the best way to get started. So I'm going to give you guys a few tips, tricks tonight. Quick rundown on everything that you need to know. So we're going to start with the very first thing. Rundown on the actual drum kit. Not everybody has this, and we'll get to that point a little bit later, but to start off, we got to get started with where to start and what entails a drum kit. So the first thing is your kick drum. You have a pedal. I don't have pictures of this, but this is what your legs do, and your legs work on a couple of different aspects. You know, this is your right leg, and if you're a lefty, it would be your left leg, and then the whole kit that I have set up here would be reversed. But the basic setup is your kick drum, your snare drum. These are all called toms. These are mounted toms. This is a floor tom. Difference is, these are sitting on stands. This one actually has legs of its own. So that's your big difference. Usually your floor toms are your bigger, 18, 16, 20, 22 inch floor toms. Your rack toms or your mounted toms will range anything from 8 inches on up to 14, 16, depending on your drum kit. So the whole basic idea is, these are your starting equipment. Your kick drum, that's the you do that with either your right leg or your left leg. I've got a double pedal instead of 2 bass drums, so I can play both feet on one kick drum. Simple as that. Okay, your snare, this is your typical what you hear in marching bands, and this is your typical beat, your snap, the crack that you generally hear. Combine those two together and you got it. Okay, a little bit of Guns N' Roses there for you, for the older people. Next thing up, must have, is your hi-hat. 2 cymbals that you get to click together. Okay, makes a slew of different sounds. It's what we call a hi-hat splash. So these generally range from 13 to 15 inches. There's so many different types. I prefer kind of an older style, thin, wispy, my opinion. Different sound than what a lot of bands use nowadays. Cymbal wise, you have what's called crashes. Okay, these are crash cymbals here in different sizes. Every brand, every size has a different tone, a different voice, and that really plays into accents on the music that you're playing. You also, I play with 2 splashes up top. One is a China splash, which is a reverse bell, and this is a regular splash. Both are 10 inchers. I also play with 3 Chinas. I've got a 14, a 12, and a 16. 16 is pretty much your standard 18 usually for most bands, but they all have just the same with your crashes. They all have a particular type of tone, particular type of sound when you play. It was a lot easier for me, 20 years ago when I first started playing than it is now, because there's so many different types of effect symbols that you can get. So your Chinas and your splashes used to be your main go-to accent points, where nowadays you have all kinds of different sounds that you can get. Mike Portney was probably one of the first persons to really go into that extra sound with his max stacks. I remember when I was a kid, when I first started playing, I started putting junk together in my garage, and all of my friends gave me crap for stacking coffee cans and shit like that together. And then 30 years later, Stomp starts coming out. Mike Portney starts coming out doing all this different stuff with all these different symbols, and I just look back on that and it's like, wow, I got crap for making these sounds when I was a kid, but Mike Portney, hey, kudos to you. Stomp, kudos to you guys. People used to make fun of me for playing on garbage can lids and crap like that, but anyways, it's a lesson that you have to learn, and to me that's one of the biggest lessons. You have to know the drums. You have to be able to sit down, listen to a song, and hear it and go, that's a 12-inch or a 16-inch crash, that's a 10-inch splash, that's an 8-inch splash, oh hey, that's a 18 or 22-inch China. And then eventually, you also have your ride symbol too. And rides are just a big, huge, massive chunk of metal. They just, it's your, if you're not playing on your hi-hat, you're probably playing on your ride in most circumstances. Some drummers very rarely use a ride. They use a crash cymbal to do all of their accent notes, but your ride is just a big, noisy, and they ring forever. So that's your basic setup. So on to the next topic. Listening to music. I don't have it over here with me right now, but headphones are incredibly important. Being able to listen to the music, you have to be able to pick out the bits and pieces of the drummer. So, listening to different songs and different bands, you need to learn before you ever start picking up a pair of sticks. In my opinion, you need to know what a drum kit is composed of. I mean, you can sit there and play along, but if you don't know that the guy is playing a crash cymbal, you can't ever replicate that music. So, headphones, super important. For me, the biggest thing that I ever learned was huge difference between cheap headphones and expensive headphones. I've got a set of Audio Technicas that I use in the studio, and when I'm mixing down music and doing my mixes, I use my Audio Technicas on my computer. They're big cans. They're right up there, in my opinion, with the Foss X Studios and the Sennheisers. But for actual jamming out to, whether I'm doing karaoke and singing, playing guitar, bass, or sitting down, I absolutely love the Samsung earbuds. And I've got weird ears, so I have to put them in kind of backwards than most people do. But get yourself a good set of earbuds and swap out the jellies until you get a good fit. You want to be able to put them into your ear comfortably where it cuts out most of the background sound, so you're actually hearing most of what's coming through the earbuds themselves. And I have just found over the years that the Samsungs, over everything else that I've tried, works out better than anything else. Another quick tip here is, headphone extension cable. This is a 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch stereo headphone extension cable, 25 foot long. Go out and get yourself a pack of binder clips. Go ahead and tape one end of it to the cable, so that way you can actually clip it onto your shirt, or I usually clip it to my pocket. And then it takes all the stress and weight off of the actual headphone cable itself. Tip number, what are we working on here? 3 or 4. Jobs. This is great for when you're first learning how to play, or if you haven't played in a long time. This is body fixative. Learned this years ago. It's we used to play with Newman gloves, I think was the name of them, back in high school marching band. They were sticky. It's what football players use. And the Jobst is great because you can just roll on a little bit onto your fingers and work that into your stick. And if you haven't been playing in a long time, like I haven't been, you work that in there, get that all tacked up, and it'll help you actually grip onto your sticks where you need to, and get you back. Don't put any on your back 2 fingers, just your thumb, first 2 fingers there, and it'll help you control the stick until you can get back to being able to hold it. And if you're like me and you've got stress fractures, or you do construction on a daily basis, you lose that gripping power to grip something this small in your hands on a daily basis. So this just helps out a lot to get you back into where you can control the sticks. Tip number 4 or 5, wherever we're at here. If you're just first starting out, this is going to be your best friend, in my opinion. A pillow. Doesn't matter where you're sitting. You don't have to have a drum set to do this. Get out a pillow, couch cushion, put it down while you're watching TV, and just start out with simple, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You don't have to count. Just the whole point of drumming is just learning how to do the movements. It's all muscle memory. I used to do this sitting around on the floor, pounding on the carpet in the band room in high school, and play on my knees. But that gets, as you get to be a better drummer, that can get pretty painful. So not something that you really want to start out with. I suggest a pillow, because it gives you that aspect of you have to move the stick. You can't always depend on the drum to kick the stick back. So practicing on a pillow, just starting off, doing 1, 1, 1, Simple stuff like that. And it takes time. Drumming is not something you can sit down and just go off and bang, you're done. There's nobody out there, you know, you can go spend $30, $50, $100 on lessons, but they're going to teach you how to do rudiments and how to read music. But in my opinion, the best drummers come from people that can tell and listen and go, oh, that's a 16-inch thick crash. That's a 14-inch thin crash. Oh, that's a 20-inch china. That's a 12-inch china. That's a 10-inch splash. Oh, that's a 8-inch tom. That's a 10-inch tom. That's a 14 and a 16 and a 20-inch tom. Oh, that guy's using a 22-inch bass drum. You know, being able to listen to what somebody else is using, to me, is the best lesson that I can give somebody to become a drummer. So, I'm going to start out here with just how to start off. Get yourself a pillow. Get yourself a pair of sticks. Doesn't matter what size. These come in a million different sizes. You can pick up a coat hanger and play with the coat hanger. I don't really care. It's just a matter of learning the movements. Sit down with a pad and just one. Just slow. Start off slow. Start off with one hand. Go to the other hand. Try to keep the notes same tempo the whole way through. Get them up to the point that you can't go any further, and then slow back down. And then pick it back up, slow back down. Do it together at the same time. And you can listen to music. I mean, that's how I learned, was just listening to music while I was doing this. So I would just sit there and learn how to keep time off of other bands. So throw in some Red Hot Chili Peppers or some 10,000 Maniacs, or hell, even Avenged Sevenfold, or something crazy, Lindsey Sterling. It doesn't matter. Bach, Beethoven. Just pick up something and learn how to keep time. Remember the old, a lot of the old Steve Martin movies. You'd watch him dancing, and he's like, the beat's like, bump, 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 and he's like, that's the whole point of this exercise. Just learning. It doesn't matter that you're playing what the drummer or the percussionist is playing. It just matters that you're keeping time. Whether you're doing it with one hand. Just as long as you're keeping time. And yes, it's going to take you time. It's going to take you 2 to 3 to 4 months, depending on how fast you can learn these movements and how fast your muscles react to it. And depending on what you do for a living, it's going to be harder or simpler for you to be able to pick up that movement and that action. So that's my biggest 4 or 5 tips and tricks for tonight. I'm going to call it a night now. Throw on a little bit more music here and see how bad I can actually sound.
I find myself relaxing on a free, nestled in my mind. There is a silent screaming, chanting the words to your night lullaby. And as I figure out